Tonight, the healthcare debate takes center stage ahead of the 2020 election. How the issue could impact politics for the next decade and beyond. And lawmakers pause to remember the life of one of their own, Congressman Elijah Cummings. Plus, the candidates who qualified for the next Democratic primary debate. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Healthcare and the 2020 election. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. The president has long promised a great Republican health care plan. So far, we haven't heard much about the details and what it may include. And the Democrats plan to use that against them as voters head to the polls.
And next month, Democrats will try to reclaim nearly 1,000 state legislative seats they lost when President Obama was in the White House. So what can Republicans do to prevent that from happening? Here's Jennifer Wishon.
We hear an awful lot about the 2020 presidential race, but next month, 538 state legislative seats are up for grabs, and the winners of those races, plus more to come next year, will shape the makeup of Congress for a decade. Voters in Louisiana, Mississippi, New Jersey, and Virginia cast their votes November 5th. While President Obama was in the White House, Democrats lost nearly 1,000 state legislative seats. Now they're laser focused on getting them back, and they're punching Republicans on health care.
Sturtevant voted to deny access to health coverage to 400,000 Virginians and expand plans that let insurance companies deny coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Kick people with pre-existing conditions off their health insurance.
Democrats know protections for people with pre-existing conditions are popular. And even though President Trump says he supports those protections, there's been no action, and Democrats smell blood.
Republicans just don't do health care. This has never been one of their strong suits, and it's a real and decades-long problem. It's one of the reasons we got the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is because Republicans have paid insufficient attention to this issue.
Tuesday, a group of House Republicans working closely with the White House released a proposal they say gives Americans freedom of choice, a clear alternative to socialist policies popular on the left.
Parts of that proposal are really strong. They would take the $828 billion of workers' earnings that employers now get to control because of a weird quirk of the tax code. They would give that $828 billion to the workers who earned it. That's a huge change. And then the workers could buy their own health insurance that stays with them as they move from job to job, rather than having their employer choose a plan for them that disappears when they move to another job.
And at the president's urging, protections for pre-existing conditions.
We want to protect pre-existing conditions by treating those who are self-employed the same way we treat those who get insurance through their job.
And how the health care debate turns out could have a lot to do with those state legislative races, because after the 2020 census, those lawmakers will draw congressional lines that will stand through 2030. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, even though the 2020 election is a little more than a year off, millions of Americans are already closely watching the candidates, and that includes Christians. The AND Campaign is a social justice-oriented faith organization that helps promote civil and community engagement in politics, and just released its 2020 presidential election statement, which reads in part, "Our nation desperately needs Christians to live out their faith in this political sphere for the good of all Americans. And the 2020 presidential candidates need to hear, respond to, and respect our voice and earn our vote." More than 50 faith leaders have already signed on to the AND Campaign statement.
And Justin Giboney with the AND Campaign joins us now. Justin, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Justin, what do you think? Faith and politics, do the two mix?
Yeah, I think the two do mix if you know how to if you know how to order them properly. The AND Campaign believes that to be faithful and to really address politics properly, you have to understand that politics is really just a tool. It's not a master. It's a tool that we can use to take care of our neighbor and promote human flourishing, and that's what we intend to do.
So walk that out for us. What does it look like to you for Christians to live out their faith in the political sphere?
Yeah, I think in general, when we talk about living out your faith in the public sphere, it's really about looking out for the interest of others and not just Christian self-interest. I mean, when we're talking about poverty, we're talking about criminal justice issues like abortion. Politics is an arena that gives us a robust opportunity to really care for others and live out our faith and show that we do have compassion.
Part of the AND campaign's statement reads, candidates need to hear, respond to, and respect our voice and earn our vote. How specifically can these candidates win the votes of Christians?
Well, I mean, obviously Christians aren't a monolith, so there's a lot of different ways, but I think that the AND campaign speaks for Christians who care about two things, which is justice and moral order. A lot of times our political landscape separates justice from moral order, so that people who are more progressive are always talking about justice. Folks who are more conservative are talking about moral order. But as we understand the gospel, Christians should be talking about both. And so for those Christians who do care about both, I think the candidates have to be nuanced in how they address issues. I think they need to address immigration in a very compassionate way. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be borders. They need to address abortion in a way that respects life, but is also compassionate towards women who have crisis pregnancies. And so it's really being willing to get outside of some of the places where the party normally takes people and have a nuanced view that is compassionate and also convictional.
Justin, the statement hints at the divisive times in which we live. It says, we affirm the historic Christian sexual ethic, yet it continues saying we believe that religious freedom and LGBTQ civil rights are not irreconcilably in conflict. Most Christians would probably agree with that first part. How do you go about balancing both, or as you say, find ways to disagree without compromising our conscience?
Yeah, a lot of times the way that our political landscape presents things to us is that it has to be all or nothing. It's a zero-sum equation, and we don't believe that's quite true. So, for instance, for the AND campaign, we do maintain the Christian sexual ethic. We believe that that is timeless. It does not expire. But that does not mean that we can't disagree with certain groups and also care for them. So I may believe in the historic Christian sexual ethic, but that doesn't mean that I think somebody who identifies as LGBTQ should be kicked out of their house, should be fired from their job, should have difficulties with banking and other things. I don't think that's necessary. So what we're saying is, yes, there should be religious freedom because religious freedom is very important, but we also can be compassionate towards those who we may disagree with. And I think things like the Fairness for All Act allow us to do that. And it's really how politics should work. Groups that don't always agree coming together to find a path forward.
All right, Justin, we're going to have to leave it there. Justin Givney, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, John.
Well, today, Capitol Hill made history and said farewell to Congressman Elijah Cummings. Cummings passed away last week at the age of 68. For more on today's ceremony at the Hill, we turn to Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson. Abigail?
Well, today, lawmakers from both sides came together to mourn the life of their friend and colleague, Congressman Elijah Cummings, as his body lies in state in Statuary Hall.
God truly blessed America with the life and legacy of Elijah Cummings.
Cummings was a civil rights leader born and raised in Baltimore, a city that's part of the district he represented for 13 terms in Congress.
He was strong, very strong, when necessary, but also kind and caring and honorable, universally respected.
When he passed away, he was serving as chairman of the powerful House Oversight and Reform Committee, one of the groups investigating the Trump impeachment inquiry.
No matter your politics, if you knew Elijah, you went to him for guidance.
Today, any political disagreements were cast aside as both Republicans and Democrats spoke to his character, integrity, and faith.
For me, I was privileged enough to be able to call him a dear friend. Some have classified it as an unexpected friendship. But for those of us that know Elijah, it's not unexpected or surprising.
Republican Congressman Mark Meadows told CBN News he's been blessed by his unique friendship with Cummings.
Not only was he a man of principle, but he was a man of grace. And I think that defines who he is. Our friendship developed over the years in a real and genuine way. And so today's a tough day, but it's a good day. I know that he's in a mansion that's been prepared for him, and yet I will miss him here.
Cummings leaves behind a wife and 3 children who say he served his country up until the very end of his life. A funeral service will be held Friday at New Psalmist Baptist Church in Baltimore, where both former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton are expected to speak.
Abigail, during his time on Capitol Hill, Cummings clearly had a big impact. Talk a little bit about what people are saying about his legacy.
Well, I think you definitely saw that. And he was very revered by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. And despite, deep political differences with some of them, that didn't stop him from making true friendships with a lot of members, like Congressman Mark Meadows, who we saw get emotional today when talking about Elijah Cummings. And I asked Meadows in an interview just a little bit ago what he thinks Cummings' legacy here on the Hill will be. Take a look.
Well, I think his legacy is one of always being direct and speaking his mind, but doing it in a way that, to use his 2 words, efficient and effective. He was always going to do that. And the other thing he's known for is always saying, well, we're better than this.
He will certainly be missed dearly here on the Hill. Back to you, John and Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Coming up, the latest 2020 White House hopefuls to secure their spot on the November debate stage.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God, even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Senator Amy Klobuchar is the latest 2020 Democrat to qualify for the November primary debate. A new Quinnipiac poll released today helped her meet the polling qualification. She joins the 8 other candidates who have already qualified, including frontrunners Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders. Other candidates have until November 13th to reach the polling and donor minimums to qualify for the debate.
Here now, Caitlin Conant, political director at CBS News. Caitlin, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
That same Quinnipiac poll that Jenna just mentioned places Elizabeth Warren ahead of Joe Biden, 28 to 21%. It's the 4th consecutive Quinnipiac poll where she's ahead of Biden. Is this now saying that Elizabeth Warren is the undisputed Democratic frontrunner?
Well, you know, it's unquestionable that she's had a really strong few months, as you mentioned, both in the polling and fundraising. I think what we've seen is that there's now 2 clear lanes that have established. One is the more progressive wing of the party, which Senator Warren and Senator Sanders. They're kind of attracting the same sorts of voters. But then you also have the moderate lane, which so far former Vice President Joe Biden has been in the lead, but there's a bunch of candidates who are hoping that if he dips at all, they can fill that void. And so you see Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who was also doing better in the polls. He was second in an Iowa State poll today in the state, which is a jump for him. Yeah, and he did well in the Quinnipiac poll this morning as well. And as you mentioned, Senator Amy Klobuchar is someone who wants to fill that space and thinks that there is potentially an opening to take those voters from Biden.
Well, one candidate who's dropping out is Congressman Tim Ryan from Ohio. Given the stricter qualifications to get on the stage, when do you expect the field to really narrow, and when will we get a good idea of who the actual candidate to take on Donald Trump might be?
Well, I think one thing to say is that candidates don't decide to drop out because they decide, you know what, I don't think I could be president after all. They run out of money, and they need the money to keep going. So I think we'll probably see over the course of the next few months, as we head into the early states next year, candidates who have the fundraising and the money that it takes to hire staff, to pay for travel, to be able to pay for TV and do all the things that they need to do to be able to get their message out so that people want to vote for them.
Is that going to be a problem for Joe Biden? He's trailing far, far behind some of these others like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders.
Well, you know, right before I walked in here today, the Biden campaign signaled that they're open to having some super PAC support Biden. So I think that says a lot. You know, they are behind Senator Sanders and Warren, and it is an important and crucial element to running a campaign.
To the impeachment inquiry on Capitol Hill, Lindsey Graham is introducing a non-binding Senate resolution condemning what he calls a closed-door, illegitimate impeachment inquiry by the House Democrats. If passed, what will that resolution do?
Well, I think the main thing to focus on here is just the messaging of Republicans right now. And you'll notice that a lot of them are criticizing the process of this as opposed to defending what the president may or may not have done. And one thing that I'm also focused on in terms of the calendar is what does this mean for a lot of the Senate Democrats who are running for president? Because with the timing of this, if the trial comes to the Senate and there is a vote to impeach in the House,
and they're in the official campaign cycle.
Exactly. That could mean that come January or February, potentially you could have Warren, Sanders, Harris, Klobuchar, Booker all sitting in a trial where they can't speak, while Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Vice President Biden are barnstorming the early states. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Just a few seconds left, but today we saw a rare moment on Capitol Hill. We saw Mark Meadows eulogizing his friend, Elijah Cummings. What does this say about just where we are in just politics in Washington?
Well, I think things are really polarized right now, so it is nice that at moments like these that politicians can come together and show that they have friendships on both sides of the aisle. And he was a giant, obviously, so it was a nice thing to see.
Caitlin, we always appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll be right back after the break.
Thank you so much.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Nepali Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. Well, to say President Trump has critics would be putting it mildly, Jenna. Just scrolling through Twitter or watching the news, it's clear he has haters.
Yeah, quite a few. But in her new book, Kimberly Strassel says that's bad for America. It's called Resistance at All Costs, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America. This week, the veteran Wall Street journalist came to CBN News and sat down with David Brody.
Here's part of that conversation.
The resistance, you know, at the beginning, it's very interesting. You kind of have a delineation point between just hating Trump and this idea of the resistance. So explain a little bit about who you're talking about when you talk about the resistance.
Well, I used that subtitle of the book very deliberately, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America, because I wanted to make a distinction between people who are simply Trump critics. And you know, in my mind, every thinking person, they look at a presidency and there's going to be things that they like. There's going to be things that they don't like. And in fact, as citizens of the country, I think we have an obligation to think critically about our elected leaders. The haters are something different. These were the folks who, from the very moment Donald Trump was elected, they viewed him as illegitimate and occupying that office, and that they were therefore, in extension, allowed to take any actions they wanted to get rid of him.
You know, I'm wondering, you have so much, I don't even know where to begin, but why don't we talk about some of the middle chapters of the book, because J. Edgar Comey and of course Mueller, tell me, I mean, no reason to relitigate the history of it, because I think a lot of folks, or at least have a sense of it, though you do a great job laying it all out. But what is kind of like the underlying resistance part of this that people need to understand as to what was at play and why Trump feels like this is a witch hunt, and what you wanted to expose in the book?
So one of the things I try to do in this book is relate what happened over the last 3 years, but also relate the ways in which the resistance have crossed boundaries, undermined our institutions, and to actually delineate them, say this was a rule that we were supposed to observe and it got broken. And I make the case in the book that the very beginning of the resistance, and one of the first examples of what I call undiagnosed Trump derangement syndrome, is Jim Comey. And that plays into the fact, I mean, it is still astonishing to me that we are saying out loud that the FBI launched a counterintelligence investigation into a presidential campaign. I mean, this is beyond all reasonable things you do.
You know what was fascinating to me in the book? We all know about liberal judges, but you call them resistance judges. And I love the term, by the way. And
Thank you.
Of course, you mentioned Ginsburg and some of what she had to say, even Supreme Court Judge John Paul Stevens, or former Supreme Court Judge. And then, of course, the travel ban drama, which was all sorts of judges, in essence, kind of going outside the purview, if you will. Talk to me a little bit about resistance judges as part of this movement.
So, by the way, we've always known that there are conservative justices and liberal justices, and that doesn't, there's nothing unusual about that. What's been really unusual since Trump became president is judges who've been willing to go beyond differences in ideology and actually break long-standing judicial norms. Okay, and I can give you an example of that. This flurry of nationwide injunctions on everything the Trump administration puts out. It puts out a policy, and some lower court judge instantly says, no, I'm blocking it, it can't go into effect. This goes against everything the Supreme Court tells the lower courts to do. We want diversity of opinions throughout different courts. There's a presumption that the executive branch gets the kind of benefit of the doubt when it comes out. They're ignoring all of this stuff just because they can't stand the guy. And so, but it's doing damage to our judicial system.
Donald Trump, he's a piece of work.
He violates a lot of norms himself.
A lot of norms, but you make the point in the book that it's not, okay, so you know what, he violates a lot of norms, but from a policy perspective, from what he's actually doing, you make the distinction between personal and policy. Explain a little bit about that.
Well, I think this is important because for 3 years we've been told by a lot of people in the media that Donald Trump is destroying our democracy, undermining our institutions, breaking our norms. As I said, I do think he is a bit norm-breaking, but if you step back and you look objectively, it tends to be mostly in his speech, in his rhetoric, in his tweets, and in his demeanor in office. it's harder to make the case that that in any way affects his departments or his policy, or in fact, I think if you step back, this has been one of the more rule-bound administrations that we have had in a very long time.
Well, there is a lot more of David's interview with Kimberly Strassel, including her take on the media's role during the Trump administration. You can watch for David's report on the 700 Club, which will be coming in the next few weeks.
Still ahead, the surprising song that has some of baseball's best channeling their inner child.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Well, the Washington Nationals now lead the Houston Astros 2-0 in baseball's World Series.
And if you're a Nationals fan, you probably know about how an unexpected song has become the anthem for the team this year. And if you have kids, you've probably heard it on repeat. Of course, we're talking about Baby Shark.
It all started when player Gerardo Parra changed his batting walkout song to Baby Shark, a song that reminded him of his young daughter. Since then, it has taken off with fans and Parra's teammates alike. Every game, you can find both players and fans getting in on the action and doing the hand motions that go along with Baby Shark.
Well, with Nationals fever taking over the district, even the National Symphony Orchestra is joining in. Some musically inclined sharks recently were spotted near the Potomac River at the Kennedy Center.
And the Washington Nationals now return to D.C. tomorrow night, where they hope to clinch the World Series.
Did you practice Baby Shark?
Baby Shark.
There you go.
Mama Shark.
Mama Shark. Daddy Shark.
He had to teach me this right before.
You do a really great job. Thanks for watching tonight's Make Nation.
Have a great night.